Welcome back to the channel. I am Matt Sokol, and today I'm going to be talking about UFC cards and why I have been investing a lot of money into them. So without further ado, let's get started. This card that I'm holding right here, I literally, less than an hour ago, it just arrived back from PSA as a Gem Mint 10. It's probably hard to see, but that is the 2013 Topps UFC Bloodlines Conor McGregor base rookie. Right above my head, you actually see the same card, but the autograph version, two of them, BGS 9.5s. So this came back at 10. Super excited. It's the first 10 of this card I have, but I do have a bunch of more of these raw that I'm going to be sending off. So hopefully I can pull another 10. This card, I'm not sure the exact current value, but I would say it's somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 as a PSA 10. So very excited. If you don't know, Conor McGregor is one of my favorite athletes of all time. So to have this in my collection is super, it's just super. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about UFC cards as a whole. There's a lot of different UFC stuff on the rack that you guys can see. Maybe I'll go through some of those cards as well. But overall, let me just start by talking about sports cards and the UFC. So if you don't know, maybe you've been living or sleeping under a rock. Sports cards over the last, I would say 1 to 2 years have been exploding, specifically the past year. Exploding off the charts. A lot of money's been coming in. A lot of people are investing. And so as more people invest, it becomes harder to find those good opportunities for growth. And so what I noticed last summer was that UFC cards were dirt cheap. They were next to nothing. Like really cheap. And it kind of, I was almost like a little bit confused. I thought I was like seeing something wrong the first couple times I was looking at it. And actually the first box that I invested in, I have an empty one behind me, I'll show you. Now this box right here is a 2009 Round 2, it's called. And so basically this is the second UFC product, the second UFC Topps product to ever hit the market. The first one is called Round 1. And those boxes were already a little bit expensive back then, so I thought it was a better value to buy these. Anyway, I bought these for $250 a piece last summer. I still have them. And the last sale on this was $1,500 a box. Of course, I had to open one of these. And so I saved the box here. I don't regret it at all. It was so much fun. And this is the old school stuff. So there's a lot of cards in the boxes. It's not like there's 20 or 30 cards. There is over 100 cards in this box. So that was my first UFC investment several months ago. Been going very well. And then I started realizing that I should be picking up more cards, and I kind of branched out and I went with some of the, basically I would say Hall of Fame type guys. Not really so much prospects, although lately I have bought a couple cards. But I've been sticking with the guys that are Hall of Fame level, guys that really changed the sport. Obviously, Conor McGregor changed the sport 100%. He led the charge that really, I want to say, brought UFC into the mainstream. I would say that, and I would attribute that partially to Conor McGregor. Guys like John Jones, who I have a rookie card of right here, who is one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. Guys like Brock Lesnar, Royce Gracie, Georges St. Pierre, Anderson Silva. Guys like that. Not only those guys, but I also found interest in guys that were fighters but are now commentators. So Michael Bisping, Dominic Cruz. Not so much Dan Hardy because he wasn't much of a great fighter, but guys like that. And I kind of tried to figure out what I thought would be some good investments. And so that's how I branched out. And I see a lot of people that are kind of coming into UFC now. They're trying to go with the prospects because they've done that model with basketball and baseball, and where they, you know, those top rookies from the year, they send it out and they get them back and they make a lot of money. But UFC, it's not the same thing as a team sport, right? Baseball, for example, there's 162 games in a season. That's a lot of games. UFC, a fighter is only going to fight 1 or 2, maybe 3, sometimes more if they're crazy, times a year. Like, that's it. And so you're not going to get that same exposure. You're not going to get that same hype. Like, in sports, it's like, holy shit, look what Zion or Fernando Tatis Jr. did today. Let's see what they do tomorrow. And UFC, it's like, yeah, except there's a much longer time period in between those events. And so, from my opinion, it is a lot more risky to buy UFC prospects than it is to buy other sports prospects. Of course, The one thing I'm not talking about at all is that UFC and MMA is not on the same level as NBA, MLB, NHL, NFL. There's not as much fans. There's not as much demand. And so what we have here is a product that is very, very limited. The populations are very, very low. And what I mean by that is they simply did not print that many UFC cards, especially the earlier stuff. And the reason that I'm making this video now, even though I've been investing for several months, is because guess what? I'm getting chills. I'm not even lying. Panini has the UFC license. They just got the UFC license. I guess it lapsed, their contract with Topps. Panini renewed it. And Panini this year, 2021, is going to be releasing the first 3 Panini UFC products. They're going to be releasing Prism, they're going to be releasing Select, and they're going to be releasing Chronicles. So of course, you have Chronicles, which is the lower end. Prism is the higher end, and then Select is even more high end than Prism. So that's great. I'm very excited about that, but that leaves a huge opportunity because we all know Panini. We know what they're doing now with the other sports. They're going to increase production like there is no tomorrow. They're going to produce these cards through the roof. I'm not saying that they're going to produce too many of them, but their production is going to be significantly, like not even close to the amount that Topps produced. So that provides us with a huge opportunity because once that happens, and once all those cards come out, once people realize, hey guys, the older stuff, the top stuff is much more limited, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go buy that top stuff. So we need to stay one step ahead of those people, which is exactly what we're doing. We're actually multiple steps ahead of them already. I personally think all UFC Topps products across the board are going to get a huge increase, not just from that, but just from UFC being one of the fastest growing sports in the world. UFC is really just, they've gone mainstream. Like everyone's watching it, and I think it's just going to continue to grow, especially worldwide. Listen, I've been to many UFC events and I've seen the fan base that is there. It is largely an international sport. When you go to a UFC event, you see people from all over the world. There's a lot of Brazilians. There's a lot of English. There's a lot of Irish. There's a lot of everyone, all nationalities. It's obviously much different than going to a baseball game. You're going to see much different demographic of people. And also just buying these UFC cards, I've noticed, hey man, a lot of these cards are in Australia. A lot of them are in Canada. I got one from Germany coming over. I have one from Slovenia coming over. And so there's a lot of cards in a lot of different places. And I think that the cards that are out there now, the top stuff, is a lot more spread out as term of where it is. It's all over the world, all over the country. And so that leads me to think that eventually, once the international fans really pick up sports cards, because obviously cards are growing overall and it is growing internationally, but I think specifically once those international fans really realize, once they really get with it, I think those international fans are going to be trying to gobble up these UFC cards as well, which is going to increase the demand. But guess what? The supply is still low, and so the price is going to go up. You have demand increase, supply stayed the same, prices will go up. That's just how it works. Simple supply and demand economics. So those are my thoughts about UFC overall. I think it's a great investment for the multiple reasons that I just pointed out. Now you might be asking, Matt, what is a good product to buy? What is a good product to invest in? I don't really want to recommend one specific product. That's not the point of this video. This video is to really recommend all UFC stuff as a whole. Of course, as I said, do be more careful with prospects. Those are going to be more risky. But Hall of Fame guys that have legendary talent, right? Like your Conor McGregors, your Israel Adesanya's, your Khabib Nurmagomedovs. Those guys, they're going to go through the roof. And I do think there is an opportunity, of course, with just UFC coming into the mainstream. I think this is huge for their personal brand. This is something that a lot of people do not think about. It wasn't so long ago that UFC, the fighters were allowed to sell their own endorsements and put them on the pants and the jersey of their uniform when they went into the ring. Like literally, Can you imagine that in another sport? Can you imagine watching the Lakers and LeBron James has a Marvel ad on his jersey and no other player does? No, of course you wouldn't. It almost sounds ridiculous, but this was one of the best ways for those UFC fighters to get paid early on. And so eventually, as UFC expanded, they said, we don't want that because it's just not professional. Not only the shorts, by the way, I'll have to put a picture. They would bring the shorts with all the names on it, and they would have a banner, a literal poster that they would put in their corner of the octagon that would have all of their endorsements on it. And honestly, just saying it out loud and thinking about it, it just seems so underground. But it was like underground at that point. They got away from that. They didn't want people doing their own endorsements. And of course, because of what it is, from my understanding, certain companies were hesitant to really be associated with the UFC because they weren't sure how customers would think of their brand being associated with, you know, fighting and violence, basically. But it's a more mainstream thing now. Also, let me say, GaryVee is getting involved in the UFC. Not just UFC cards, but he has Vayner Sports, which is basically a management company for athletes. They recently signed on some of the UFC guys, the main one being Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight champion of the world, arguably the best heavyweight in the history of the UFC, beat Daniel Cormier twice. And what Vayner Sports is going to do is they're going to get these fighters endorsements, which has me going, yes, that's what I want to see. I want to see these fighters get endorsements because that's how they build their personal brand. That's how they grow their social media. And that's how they grow everything. And in a world like today, where social media is king, basically, you need to have a big following and you need to be growing your following. So as more athletes sign with Vayner Media, as more athletes get sponsorship deals and do advertisements and do all sorts of different things, they're going to grow their personal brand. And what do you think is going to happen? As they grow their personal brand, there's more people interested in them. So what do you think is going to happen to their cards once Stipe Miocic does a Buick commercial? It's going to go through the roof. Some of these people's names, they're going to be household names. There's probably, most houses in America, they probably couldn't even name a single UFC fighter besides maybe Conor McGregor. But there's going to be a day where UFC fighters' names are going to be such a household thing that no one's even going to think of UFC as an underground or a small sport anymore because it's going to be right up there with the main sports. With other sports, we don't see that same opportunity because they're already getting deals. They're getting deals out the wazoo. They're getting so many deals that they probably have to turn deals down because they don't even have time to do all of that marketing and do all those advertisements and endorsements and whatever it is they need to do. And that is why I see such a huge opportunity. I mean, can you imagine if there was a Conor McGregor commercial in this year's Super Bowl? That would be huge. Huge. So I think about stuff like that, not just things that you normally think about in cards. You have to think about their brand and how that's going to grow over time. And a lot of people, they're going to watch a fight and they're going to see some guy on his debut knock a guy out in 13 seconds with some crazy spinning back elbow, whatever it is, and they're going to go, oh, let me buy that guy. Now, I'm not saying don't, but you got to understand, in the UFC, it's not the same as other sports. No matter how good you are, no matter who you are, no matter how you're doing, you could be 4 minutes and 59 seconds through the 5th round of a 5-round fight. All it takes at any given moment in any fight is one punch, one kick, one choke, and it is done. People don't seem to understand that in the UFC. People seem to kind of have the same expectations of other sports where it's like there's a score. The score in UFC only matters if the whole fight goes the distance. And at any point, that can change. So that's what I think about the sport overall. That's what I think about UFC cards. And I forgot to mention, I think one of the biggest opportunities in UFC cards is raw to grade. Specifically UFC cards, the population at PSA is so low, like it blows my mind. And a lot of these people, they want to buy graded cards. They don't want to buy raw cards. So I've been buying a lot of raw cards. I've been buying a lot of Conor McGregor stuff. Obviously, this is his rookie, but I've been buying a lot of just 2017 stuff, his first year Topps Chrome, and 2018 second year Topps Chrome, and just other stuff, numbered stuff, game fight used stuff, part of the mat that he fought on, stuff like that. I've been buying them up. I've also been buying those Hall of Fame fighters that I mentioned earlier, and those are some of the best guys. In addition, I have been investing in sealed UFC wax as well. Obviously, this is pretty rare because the production was low, and so it's much harder to find these sealed UFC boxes than it is the other sports. But it's the same theory of when Panini, not if, but when, starts the production and starts putting out those products, people are gonna wanna come back to Topps. And as the raw cards get harder to find, because people are buying them up, people are gonna buy boxes. And so, something else that's a little bit more confusing with UFC is the rookie years. With other sports, it's really easy to do. With UFC, it's kind of confusing. For example, 2018, there's a couple different products. 2018, you have Israel Adesanya, who is an absolutely generational talent. And you have a Kamaru Usman, who is the middleweight champ, who just won again against Gilbert Burns. But those rookie cards are only in the 2018 museum collection. And there's a 2018 Chrome box. And there's a lot of stuff going on. It can be a little bit confusing. But at the end of the day, this is a huge opportunity. And I hope that you, even if you're not into UFC, even if you're not involved with it, you will consider it, because I've really never seen a specific sports card opportunity the way that I see these UFC cards right now. Like, I'm looking and I see Hall of Famers UFC cards, and you can buy them for $5 to $10 raw. They're a rookie card, a Hall of Famer. Meanwhile, any other sport, that card is $500+ Like, just look at the prices and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Sorry for rambling. I just love UFC so much, and I'm just really excited about the sport and the sports card market as it pertains to the sport. So that's all I have to say for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click that bell to turn post notifications on. I am that Sokol, and I'll catch you in the next one.